Hey you! Yes you! If you like our video, just hit the subscribe button and also hit the bell icon to stay notified for the future updates.
Thank you so much for the amazing introduction. It's really my pleasure to be here and take the seminar on machine learning, artificial intelligence, and how we as India can progress towards becoming a technology giant. So, without wasting much of your time, I'll share my screen and then I'll ask you. So, I'm going to ask a lot of questions in between. So, I expect you guys to give me answers in the chat, or yeah, chat will be perfect. So, where I can see your responses and then I can act accordingly. Okay, so we have around 100 plus attendees. So, that's good. Okay, so just give me a minute. I'll just share my screen and then once it's visible, just inform me in the chats and then we are good to go. Okay, so yeah, my usually way of saying hello is waving my hand across the stage and welcoming everyone. But though we are living in unprecedented times, so yeah, this is hello. Hello, everyone. So I'm Ali Mustafa, and I share a tagline that is "I build human networks" because I am really effective in connecting with people and making an impact in their lives. And at the same time, I bring a lot of value to the companies which I kind of partner with and work with. I'm an entrepreneur and a student. So yeah, like the organizer told and introduced me, I've been talking a lot at different colleges, and this is one of my special and most close to my heart, Selvi, where there were 1,500 plus students who attended my talk in Gujarat, and this is also one of them. And there are many like this, which are very close to my heart, but these are few of them. So probably we will click a photo, maybe a screenshot, something like that, not a selfie, but by in between the session or at the end of the session. Let's see how it goes. I'll request you guys to turn on your cameras and then we can click a quick screenshot kind of, and then we can move on. So I guess all this have been already covered and told to you by the organizer, but I'll just let a minute to tell you that though I might not be having 10 years of experience, but I have worked with Googlers, NVIDIA experts, and I myself hold more than 50 plus certifications, including from all major companies in deep learning and artificial intelligence. So yeah, So, as an Intel software innovator, we are independent innovators supported by Intel, where Intel provides us support in terms of helping us with hardware and helping us with different kind of problem statements for solving for India. The basic solution which I yeah, I guess there's some background noise. Okay. The solution which I made using Intel Technologies was, so you might have heard that there was a stampage in Mumbai at a local railway station. Now that occurred due to a lot of people not understanding what to do at the given moment. What if we could use deep learning and analyze their movements and then tell them that if there is a possible stampage, so they might be alert and the officials might reach there at at before the crisis happens. So that is like one of my projects with the Intel Software Innovator Program, and I constantly work in people on different Intel certifications. Yeah. So let's move ahead without wasting much of a time. So when I talk about India, like this is our Indian map, and I usually say this in Hindi that ये हमारा प्यारा भारत है, and the diversity which you see in India, you cannot find in any given country. Again, that's in terms of languages, in terms of religions, in terms of cultures, in terms of whatever you list, we are the most diverse nation in the world, and that diversity obviously brings problems. But again, we are a very good symbol of unity in diversity. So, what are the problems which technology brings in when we talk about diversity, or when we talk about a lot of people interacting, trying to interact in different languages? So, let's move ahead and try to understand that. So, the first problem which we usually encounter is about the language. Which language do we speak? So I guess most of the people are from different parts of India, as well as some are international participants. But majorly in India, we speak Hindi language. Like half of the population speaks Hindi language, and then there are some part of South which speaks Tamil, Malayalam, Kannada, Telugu, and then there's West side Marathi. So Maharashtrians obviously we speak Marathi, and then there is Urdu being spoken on a very wide range. So we don't have a very one specific language in which we interact, though English is not the language choice for many. Okay, so from 1.3 billion people, there are many people, many students, and many people who can't speak English fluently or can't understand them, but they have their own languages. And this is just a list. Just this is just tip of the iceberg. So if you kind of officially count, there are just like 23 to 24 languages officially. But when I kind of just hard counted, I can like state there are 30 languages. But it doesn't end there. So there are more than 1600 dialects in that 30 languages. So what is a dialect? A dialect is a way of speaking. So let's say ऐसे हम लोग webinar attend कर रहे हैं. So that means each one of us, hum as in we, every one of us is attending the webinar. But if I go to Lucknow or UP or any other, kind of city in Lucknow, sorry, in UP, then what will happen is if I say hum seminar dekhenge, that means I as an individual will watch the seminar and not as we. So the word remains the same, the language remains the same, everything remains the same. What changes is just the location, and the whole meaning of the word changes. Another examples of dialects could be, different dialects of Hindi as Rangpuri, Rangbashi, Rangdeli. So when we were working with Google Crowdsource team, we came across so many different languages, more than 50 languages which are spoken widely in India, but but I never studied about them before. And belonging to a very good school and a very good engineering college, I didn't even hear about any of these languages. So that is like we can call it as a technological bias. So even though 100% of Indians are not available on internet, the penetration is around 30 to 40%. Our rule on internet has been massive, and that is so. This is a Twitter analysis of one day I was just roaming around on Twitter and I saw some tweets. And as you see, just as for a scene, using set for TRPs and all these tweets, but 1.2 million, 1.4 million tweets. Again, that's massive. And if you see, so usually when you see a hashtag trending, you know that something bad has happened, and that's when the hashtag trends again, not before that. So if you go and if you click that, I'm not a big first fan, but if you see it, that was the trend which was going on of all that hashtag, and there were more than 8 million tweets within 24 hours to make it world's fifth largest Twitter trend. In meanwhile, and that is the power of India on social media. That is the power of youth on social media. So this is just one example. Another example could be PewDiePie versus T series, where we defeated PewDiePie. He tried with people across the globe, and we defeated him just with India, just because of the population, just because of the number of users who are using internet and the cheap availability of the internet. Again, the controversy of YouTube versus TikTok, which has been happening right now. But again, if you see how TikTok has been in trend, is because it removes the technology bias which was there. So you might find all the low income groups people making videos and effectively, and you fun or the XYZ factors and they make TikTok videos. But you can just imagine how the technology can shape or bring people together, and how even a taxi driver can actually make TikTok videos and get famous within hours. Okay. And the Indian version of the similar TikTok application is Mitro. So if you hate TikTok, love Mitro. But this is just a way of saying that how technology or machine learning in general. So obviously TikTok uses machine learning to optimize their videos, to show recommendations, and it's a very passive application. So it's just like you just need to keep swiping, and it will show you recommendations based on your interest. So that is the power of machine learning, and combine machine learning with a powerful application, it might bring reforms. For example, TikTok is one of the most downloaded applications in India, with more than 190 million downloads. Okay, in India itself. That was the data of 2019. If I talk about 2020, total downloads of TikTok is 1 billion downloads. There are 7 billion people in the world, and 1 billion people use TikTok. That's 1/7 of the world. Okay, so you can understand how massive it is and why it is so massive, because of the underlying machine learning technology which it uses to optimize the videos, to show the recommendations, and to popularize it. So that's one part of it. Another part is, if you see this Chinese applications on Play Store, they have been on the rise. Indian creators are not able to kind of level up with them. If you have been using any of these applications, you have been using Chinese app, more than 10 apps at any given point, you'll find our Chinese companies. So the agenda of thinking about how actually we can use machine learning and solve these problems and develop our own applications can actually be training in top 10 applications which even Indians use. Forget about the world. We have so much population in India itself that even if you develop an application which is used by only Indians, it can surpass the world trend. And so these are all these massive examples of how we actually rule the internet. If it is about rating someone 1 star, or including someone whose name is similar. So if you know about this controversy, it has been very popular about Snapdeal and Snapchat. Though Snapchat did some mistake, Snapdeal had to pay the price because of the word similarity of snap. So that is the audience. Okay. The recent controversy, as I told you, 1.6 stars within 2 days, and massive. Again, it climbed up to 4.7. But that's like how machine learning helps Google to kind of eradicate negative reviews. Obviously, if you don't download the application and you leave a review, that will be a negative review or a false review, which is just put for the purpose of defamation. So yeah. So why do we need AI first? Why do we need machine learning? Why can't we just make apps and deploy it on Play Store and let Indians use it? So the first major problem is that if you remember this video, all the boys in the room, I guess you guys remember this video, probably. So this is a video which went viral, Priya Warrior, and she earned more than like 3 million followers within 2 days, surpassing the creator of Instagram, the creator of Facebook, the owner of Instagram, Mark Zuckerberg. So what was special about this video is that even though people didn't understand the sound, the song behind the video, they understood the emotions, they understood what the girl was trying to convey, or the essence of love. So what we understand from this is that though people don't understand the language, they can understand the emotion. And this opens up a new dimension of inputs to the computer and to the mobile phone. Though we had it earlier, so in fifth standard, we studied about input devices. So, what are the input devices? Can anyone tell me? Input devices for computers or like mobile phones in general. So, I can switch back and see your chats. Uh, what are the input devices? There's a mouse, there's okay, come on, be quick, guys. A mouse, mic, microphone, pins, and all. So there has been plenty of okay, there have been plenty of input devices available, and what we never kind of focused was on microphone. How microphone can bring reforms, or how voice first can bring reforms. So, if you heard about Bolo application by Google, which is portrait site for like small school going kids, so that has been massively popular. If you have seen similar applications, they are massively popular because of the voices and input. Because the majority of the audience in India, they cannot read something, but they can speak something. They can understand something based on the language which is already there. Okay, so that is one of the aspects which we say when we talk about voice, and that's why you have been seeing a lot of companies like Google, Amazon, Apple pushing towards voice first or AI first, telling that voice is the future, voice is everything. Why is it so? Because voice makes it easy to communicate. For example, which keyboard do you use on a daily basis? You use Google keyboards, and you use English version of keyboard. English, okay, not English, not Hindi, English. Now English is altogether a new massive, and it can't be done. And it can't be done. It can't be done. So that's why voice first and AI first, which can eradicate that need of developing so much, so much different keyboards for input and making the process very easy with one ML model running across devices. And I ask this question most of the time is what we have the most, and the answer is very pretty clear. It's population, right? We have so much of population, so people around us, and that contributes to a lot of different factors, including how we use technology, how we consume internet. So let's say earlier before Geo, we were consuming 1 GB data per month to consuming 2 GB data per day. You can understand the massive consumption on massive amount of data which we consume on a daily basis. Okay, so it needs content, and that's why applications like TikTok are very, very, very popular. Okay, so let's go back to the technicality and understand the technical aspects. Okay, so yeah, okay, and NLP comes in between ML and DL, which is the part of it is lying on the underlying infrastructure of ML, DL, and AI. Okay. So, what is artificial intelligence? Artificial intelligence is about telling or making a machine as smart as humans. Okay. So, what is AI? AI is replicating human being. Making a machine as intelligent as human beings. Uh, have we achieved it? No. Clear no. We are far away from it. So what is so what but what we have achieved is a specific you can say we can have better drivers, better machine drivers than human drivers. We can have better machine mechanics than human mechanics, because AI have mastered in individual fields, but it is yet to master altogether as a human being. Okay, then comes machine learning. So what is machine learning? Machine learning is all about there is bunch of data. You need to put predictive analysis on that data and then remove some conclusions and conclude something and say that okay, this is what I conclude from this inputs and this XYZ factors. Then comes deep learning. Now, deep learning is about it's like learning like humans. So machine learning is not actually learning like humans, but about it is more like learning through the data and using different algorithms, different math functions. Okay. So there are set of functions, for example, decision trees or random forest or uh, like near neighbors. So some techniques which enable them to learn. But deep learning, on the other hand, focuses on how humans learn and replicating the human psychology in machines. So how humans think, how humans learn, and then replicating them into deep learning, into making into machines so that they can learn the way humans learn. So let's go and explore some parts of it. So you have been seeing these days machine learning has been quite famous and everyone talks about machine learning. They are like, okay, machine learning is everywhere and XYZ factors. But what the technological curve suggests that we are in 2020 and the demand of machine learning is on the rise of decline. So though till now we had a lot of demands of engineers, but in the near future it might happen that we don't need so much of ML engineers because their jobs might already be automated. So let's try to figure out, if is machine learning going to take all the jobs, or how can we code up our own model. So we are going to do a small practical session as well, which will enable you to code up your own model and try your hands on machine learning. So before we get technical, I always say that someone in the rocket science class might be saying that, come on guys, it is not music theory, and someone in the music theory class might be saying that, come on guys, this is not rocket science. Okay, so yeah, moving forward, how does machine learning really happens? So machine learning really happens when there is a teaching set or a data set which is available, and then we pass the data set into an algorithm, and then that algorithm is used to solve a problem, and then it gets smarter and smarter day by day. Okay, so how it happens really? So let's see. So think of this as a child. So what can you conclude of this child? Like, what is this child actually doing? So what I will do is I will, um, because I want to see you guys type. So I'm going to keep this like this, and I'm going to cheat the chats here. Okay. So what this guy is doing? Can you tell me? Is he laughing? Is he like what he is he doing? He's yelling. Someone says crying, screaming. Okay. Mm, crying maybe. Okay. Many people are saying that it might be crying, but why? Okay, I guess there are a lot of mothers in the call as well, faculties maybe. So why do you think this child is crying? Okay, or teenagers can guess it. Like, so terrified due to something, yelling, someone yelled at him, pooped his van. Okay, that is the very good judgment. Yeah, that's awesome. He's sad. He's hungry. Maybe wanted something stubborn. Okay, okay, he missed an opportunity. Okay, Aman is being very positive here. So, okay, that's good. So, the possible conclusions can be he's hungry, or he might be in a train and I might have encountered a person like me. So I usually scare the shit out of usually children. So if they see me in eye to eye, and I make faces and scare them out. So they start crying because that's like kind of evil thing. But yeah, that is how it works. Though, so I usually do that in public places. I kind of scare kids and make them cry, kind of. But at the end of the day, if I try to conclude how kids operate, they kind of react to the environment. So this guy doesn't know how to speak. This guy doesn't know what to do. So what he might do is he might just cry, and then he might let you figure out what has happened to him. So he knows only one thing. He knows to cry. So whatever happens, he will cry. Okay. Now the intensity of that cry might tell you what is happening. Okay. So if this guy is crying very loudly, you might know that okay, someone read him, hit him real hard, or something really bad happened. Okay. Or if he's crying very, less not so much intensely, so you might say that okay, he's not so much hungry, or he's just acting or something like that. Okay. So when I talk about teaching machine learnings, they are simple as child. So when you were born into a family, you are a Hindu. If I was born in a Muslim family, so I am Muslim. And later the time, so
if I learn from the environment. So because I lived and born and brought up in Hindu surrounding, I know Marathi, more accurately than Maharashtrians, because I am speaking Marathi from the time I was very small to now. I have certifications in Marathi, okay, because I was born and brought up in that environment. But at the same time, if you see my colleagues or my peers, Muslim friends, they speak Arabic, they speak Urdu, or they speak different languages, which I don't know. Okay, so it all depends on the environment which you are, growing in. So we shared a lot of Karanjis, we shared, so because the environment was like that. Okay, the environment was productive, the environment was everyone was friendly, and then we played together, we learned together, and we grew together. So, as a child, as a newborn in this world, you're not intelligent, you're not dumb, but what environment you get, you can get that smarter. Okay, simple as that. So, let's imagine the situation. Okay, and I want your answers with in chats. Okay, so let's see. So you are in a mall. Okay, you are a brother or a sister or a mother or a father, and you are in the mall, and you are with your child, which is very small. Okay, and now this child wants something to eat, so he's looking at something and he wants that material to eat. Okay, and you are like no, so he's like okay, he's crying a bit, and then you are like no, strong no, and then he's like okay, you cannot just deny me, I'm going to cry a bit louder. Okay, so if you just deny me, I'm going to cry a bit louder. But then you are a strict parent, and then you don't want your child to eat that chocolates, and then xyz factors, so then you say no. But again, what will happen is the child will insist, and then it will lie on the floor and then starts crying, rolling up there, that I want this, I want this Cadbury, I want this chocolate, and now you are left with no option but to buy it to him, and then that's what you do. And then he is very happy that oh my god, I got this chocolate. But he learned something, that if you don't get anything, what you do is first cry, then you cry loudly, then if it doesn't solve, sit down on the floor and cry loudly. Okay, but and this worked. Okay, this worked in the mall, and every one of us has done that, up if unless and until our parents were not that strict. Obviously mine were very, so I have to do that every time. Not now, obviously I'm grown up, but in the dad in the earlier days. So how did I learn that this method doesn't work when I'm 20 or when I'm 22? Okay, so I tried this when I was 6, I tried this when I was 7, when I tried this when I was 8, but as soon as I turned 12, okay, and I went to a mall, again the same scenario, and again I want a chocolate, and starts crying, and then mom is like, "No, I'm not giving it to you." And then I sit down on floor, because I know the ultimate weapon, right? Sit down on floor and cry. So I sit on the floor and I starts crying, and the mom disappears. Okay, she is on her pathway, so she's not caring anymore about the crying part, and then she just moves on. And then now I'm fearing that I don't lose her in that crowd. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to run behind her, forgetting about the chocolate or anything like that. And because I have a bigger problem now, I have a problem finding my mom out here. Okay, so that is a bigger problem to me. So as a 12-year old, what I'm going to do is I'm going to forget about that chocolate, and I'm going to behind my mom. Okay, so that's how I learned that this doesn't work anymore. Okay, and as adults, you just don't cry and get your things done. Either you buy them, either you get punished, or xyz factors, but you don't get your way around crying. Okay, so as adults, we are fascinating. We learn that okay, our environment is not so good, our friends are not so some are snakes, some are good, and some are forever friends, some are temporary friends, and some are friends for projects and xyz. And as adults, we learn all this from the environment, from the data. So even if you are not using a mobile phone, even if you are 0% digitally connected to the internet, you are generating data on a daily basis. Okay, and how is that? So let's say tomorrow you go to a grocery shop and you order something. Okay, you don't have a mobile phone, you don't have anything, but a bill is generated and your data is generated. Your footprint is marked with your name, with your tag. Okay, so even though you go to a signal, okay, there's a CCTV camera up and running out there, so it will detect your number plate, it will detect you as in sitting there, and it will generate data. So even though you are not actively participating or generating data, passively you are generating a lot of data, which is there in the surrounding, there in the environment, and people are using that data to figure out who you are or figure out what they can sell you, or give you a challenge if you broke a signal. So what's your guess? Um, whose leg is this? Is it a donkey? Is it a doggy? Is it a cat? Or is it a human being? What do you think? What's your best guess?
हेलो मैम. हाँ मैम. मैम अभी स्क्रीन विजिबल है क्या मैम? ओके. मैम इट माइट बी ड्यू टू नेटवर्क इश्यूज देन मैम. डिड यू ट्राई स्विचिंग नेटवर्क? ओके
Of course,
ओके.
human being.
यूर आउट.
Okay, why do you say it is a human being?
तो नेटवर्क का तो इशू नहीं आएगा फिर बाहर है तो.
Why do you say it's a
नहीं
human being?
नहीं 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 वीडियो तो हाँ मैम बराबर. करेक्ट मैम. यस मैम.
Okay.
यस मैम.
Most of them are like on skin basis, two-legged. So two-legged is kangaroo as well, right? My Neha says two legs. Two legs are kangaroos are there also two legs. Okay, my cat stands on two legs sometimes. Mane Sanket says that we know the structure of two legs. Okay, that's good. But these two legs are not similar, right? Don't you think? Do you think they are of a single human body or they are of different human bodies? Yeah. There are single human bodies or different human bodies? Okay. So Asta says that they are from different bodies. They both legs are. So what do you think? These both legs are of the same body? Or okay, let's conclude. Okay, I agree with you. This is a human being. Now, which leg belongs to whom, man or woman? Oh, we don't have Anil Kapoor here. Okay, not him. Okay, different one leg backed. Okay, so this is same. It totally depends. Okay, but as I have taken the image, I can tell you that okay, one leg is shaved and another one is not shaved, and they both are of man. Okay, and you can figure that out by using looking at the toe. Okay, usually because yeah, and because you can understand the structure of a female leg and a male leg. Okay, so yeah, how did you conclude that? By seeing different legs available. Okay, obviously, when you were a kid, you were holding legs, and then you saw them, and then you understood that okay, these are human legs, and so much, like so much big scale. So let's talk about AI Winter. So AI Winter, it was so in 1915, Turing test was invented where we could differentiate between a human and a machine, and then later on, there was the first AI Winter in 1973, and it went for around 7 years till 1980, and in that 7 years it was called it was boom times. Okay, it was times when everyone was talking about deep learning. Okay, obviously you and me were not even born back then. Okay, obviously if you're a 90s kid, you are not born that time, but at that time the boom started, and in 1988 something crazy happened. So when the second AI winter happened in 1988, Jan Ligon, Geoffrey Hinton, they came to a conclusion that we don't have the compute power to run neural networks at this given time. We are way ahead of our time. Okay, we are way ahead of our time. The software is way ahead of its time, and we don't have the compute power to compute and make neural networks work on larger data sets. We can do it on smaller data sets, but on real world problems, we cannot do it because we lack compute power. And suddenly everything turned down, and no one was really excited about deep learning. And then 2012 happened. Okay, and in 2012, um, again Jan Ligan, and with his students, he published a paper where he brought in the concept of convolutional neural networks and deep neural networks, where there was again a competition. Okay, and in that competition, this so Jan Ligan won that competition, And again, this was a breakthrough in deep learning, and they were, everyone was now excited again about deep learning and machine learning and artificial intelligence. So yeah, that is the history of deep learning. So how does deep learning really happens? So when I talk about deep learning, it try to replicate how humans work. So for example, will you put your hand in burning fire? Will you do that? There is a fire burning, and what will you do if you see there is a fire and it might burn you down? What is the next step which you will take? Yeah, will you put your hand in a burning fire? What is your take on that? You won't, right? Why would you? Okay. So, but what about the circus guys? Did this solve a fire? What about them? Don't they have the fear of getting burned? Why can they, kind of spit fire by taking kerosene inside their throat, and we cannot even touch fire? Like, why is it so? Anyone in the chats? Why is it so? That at a given point, one person can take fire, and we cannot even touch it. So the output will be that they can hold. They are trained so much that they can hold it for a few seconds, but after a given point of time, they will also be in a situation where they will burn their skin down. Okay, for some time, yes, they can do that. Okay, and they are trained for that. So from so your typical childhood will be like, don't play with fire. Fire is not good. Don't play with fire. Fire is not good. And their typical childhood will be like, play with fire. That is our livelihood. That is what is going to give you, money when you grow up. So different perspectives. How did this happen? So there is a so it trained our brain. Okay, it trains our neurons, our neural networks. And so if you have seen a typical, so I am not a fan of biology. So if you have seen the typical neural, or the neuron which is there in the body, and how the neuron works, and how it actually, helps us to take different decisions. So let's say if my internet goes off at this moment, what will be my sudden reaction? My sudden reaction will be to find internet and come back online. Okay, so yeah, something like that. So how we are responsible on all these decisions. So Yanli can try to, put that into perspective by writing a mathematical equation where we say that we have some inputs x1, x2, x3, and we kind of, put some equation out there, and then we add some biases on top of that, and some weights on top of that, w1, w2, w1, w2, w3, some random weights out there, and then we try to find a solution which can set this w1, w2, and w3 at an ideal position, which can give us the optimal output. So that might be going above your head, but let me explain you with an example. So this is how a typical deep learning, deep neural network might look like, or artificial neural network might look like, with some amount of inputs, some amount of hidden layers, and some amount of output. Now let's understand what are these hidden layers, and what are this output, and what are these inputs. Okay, so whenever you are representing an image, so we are going to solve the MNIST problem. Okay, that is the hello world of machine learning. So if I am writing a number, so this number is typically represented in the formats of zeros and ones inside the computer memory. So obviously you see red color, you see black color, you see green color, but they are not like that. They are represented in terms of pixels format whenever you save that on a computer. And then they have PNG format, they have JPG format, and so on and so forth. So a typical number might look like, to you, like a white and black, but when you kind of look at it very closely, they might be in pixels format. Okay, so everything represented on a computer memory is in zeros and ones. Okay, so uh, if you're doing a normal machine learning, so it might take you 6 lines of code to write a machine learning program, a normal machine learning program. But for deep learning, it is like around 8 to 10 lines. Okay, so what are the important concepts? How does this work in real world? In real world, neurons represent human neurons and how humans react and work with it. So typically, we try to replicate them using mathematical equations by adding some weights, some biases, and try to regularize them using different error functions and different optimizers. How much training data do you need? You need a lot of training data depending on the problem you're solving. If you're solving the problem of self-driving car, you need a lot of data. If you're solving the problem of apple and orange, you need very less data because they do are already distinct fruits, and they can be classified very easily. For example, banana and orange, again very distinct shape, size, color, so you can actually classify them very easily. How is it regulated or what makes a good feature? So we are going to see that in the later stage. So we are using TensorFlow for this number 678, 689. Okay. So a group of numbers is called as a vector. Okay. Now we have a group of vectors, and that's what we call as table or matrix. Okay. We called it as matrix. Now we have group of matrix. We call that as table. Now we have group of tables, and that's where we are running out of words, and that's when we call it as tensor. So what is a tensor? A very high dimensional or multi-dimensional or n-dimensional array, okay, which we represent. So that is a tensor. So in very naive or very easy language, this image can explain you what is a tensor. Scalar very small, vector a bit stretched, matrix 2x of vector, tensor 2x of matrix. So for any given image, the neural network might learn some parts of using some images and might put that into perspective and then give you an output. So for example, if you run that on this image, the output will be the person is riding a surfboard in the ocean, and that was detected from different parts using different features. So let's try to try to do live demonstration. So what we are going to do is we are going to solve this problem. So I'm going to share the code lab available with me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this URL, and what you need to do is you need to visit. So you need to visit this URL. Okay, and I'm going to post uh, the resources in the channel here. So you don't need to be on Telegram. You can just join in there, and I'll post a link of the code lab there. You can go to this URL, and as you have already seen, I have posted the code lab there. You don't need a Telegram account. You just go there and click that, and then you can actually go and do the code lab. So I'll wait few more seconds till I get a confirmation that everyone has joined. I see there are some interesting conversations are happening. Okay, touching fire, spitting. Okay, sir, I'm unable to see anything. Okay, your internet might not be working because I have another device which I am seeing what you guys are seeing. Yeah, this is the link which I'm sharing on the screen right here. It's visible to me on my other device. I don't know why it's not visible to you. Okay, because the link is too big, right? You cannot type this. Okay, you won't be able to type this. This is too big. So that's why I have given you this link so that you can go here and then you can kind of, you know, is everyone joined the lab? Please say a yes in the chat once you are done so that I can start with the practicals. Please go. It's a very easy URL. You can subscribe alternatively to the channel if you want to see more resources. Okay, I keep posting the resources there, internship opportunities in data science as well. Okay, and all my upcoming sessions. So you can subscribe to the Telegram channel as well. In the evening itself, in the morning itself, I took a session on machine learning. That is also an interesting session. You can go and have a look. Okay, yeah. Oh, I can do that as well. But I thought there are only 20 people in the chat, so that's why I couldn't see that. Okay. Okay, that is a problem. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put it. Okay, so I'm starting with the practical directly. Let's say, okay, please join. So this is how it will look like once you join in, and you might see an option of open in playground. So please do that so that you can code with me. Okay, if you do the option open in playground. Okay, so let's start. So what we are going to do here is we are going to use TensorFlow. So I'm importing, so by default collab environment. So what is this which we have opened? It is called as collaborative. So what is a collab environment? It already has pre-installed libraries. It is a runtime powered by Google. You get free runtimes of TPUs, GPU, and CPU. So you can click on runtime. You can manage sessions. Sorry, not manage session. You can click on runtime, and you can go to change runtime type, and in that you can see there are hardware accelerators like GPU and TPU available. If you select none, that is a CPU. If you select GPU, it becomes GPU. If you select TPU, it becomes TPU. What is GPU? Graphical processing unit. What is TPU? Tensor processing unit. So if you're learning TensorFlow on TPUs, then it is going to be next level fast. Okay, obviously. So I'm going to use GPU for now, and I'm going to save this. Obviously, I will require GPU. I don't need GPU because this is a very normal code lab. So I don't really need a GPU, but again, you can switch that. It will be very fast. Okay. So let's run this, and I'm running this. So I'm inputting TensorFlow STF. This is in Python. So if you don't know Python, I'm sorry, but yeah, this is how it is. And I'm importing PyPlot for plotting images from Matplotlib. I'm importing NumPy as well to do computations. Okay, obviously. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to import the dataset called as MNIST. Okay, so what is MNIST? So the dataset is actually called as NIST. Okay, it is called as the original dataset is NIST, and MNIST is the miniature, okay, miniature version of NIST. That's why it was given the name MNIST. Okay, so if you see MNIST, that is a very popular dataset, Hello World of Machine Learning. So you can see the source and you can check out the real source of MNIST. Again, it is published by Jan Ligon. So you can check out his website and you will find it there. I do have it in the presentation. Okay, I don't have it here. Okay, no problem. So yeah, so you can just Google MNIST and you will find it there on the Jan Ligon's official website where he has hosted the dataset. Okay, so how many what dataset is available? So there are 70,000 images in total. There are 60,000 training images and 10,000 testing images. Okay, all labeled. So this is a supervised machine learning problem because we have labeled data. Okay, so what we are going to do is we are going to classify them into four different variables: training images, training labels, testing images, and testing labels. Okay, and we are going to load data. By default, TensorFlow has a module called as datasets, which can import datasets very easily. Okay, so you can just write the dataset name here, MNIST, and it will import that dataset into your working directory. So the original dataset link is this, and it just downloaded it and saved it here. Now let's display it. So what I'm going to do is I'm using a for loop for displaying some images, to be specific 9 images, random images, so that I can see how the dataset looks. So the dataset is very clear. The images are all the images are having a dimensions which is mentioned here. So all the dimensions are of which range? Can anyone tell me, looking at this scale, what is the dimension of these images? The dimension of these images are 25 by 25. Okay. and they are grayscale. That means they are black and white. So they don't have three channels RGB. Okay, so they don't have that three channels RGB. Okay, so usually they are represented into only single dimension. Okay, so whenever you are working with an image, so I will show you how actually things work. So let's say if there is an image like this. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom it to the 0th pixel available out there so that I can see how does this really looks like. Okay, so I'm going to zoom in, zoom in, zoom in, zoom in, zoom in, and then I'm going to grab a byte of this and I'm going to remove this. Okay, I'm going to delete everything, paste it here, and then zoom it again, and now you can see, so each level of pixel which we have here, so this is one pixel. Okay, and this is represented into three colors. Typically the colors are RGB. Okay, so in this format, obviously I'm going to reduce them. Three channels, RGB channels. Okay, and each channel represents from 0 to 255. Okay, so each channel represents 0 to 255. So a typical so if I have a value called as 0 comma 0 comma 0, what will that represent? Which color will this represent? Anyone have an idea? If I have value like 000, and what if I have, yeah, so 000 will be, it will be black, it will not be white. Okay, it will be black. If there is 1 1, if there is 1 1 1, it will be opposite. Okay, so 000 stands for black. Okay, okay, so yeah, that's how images are represented. So now we know that these are the images how they are represented. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just print the raw image. So if you see, if I'm printing the raw image, you can see there is like 253, 253, then 253, 195, 000. 0 is for black, obviously, so half of the things are black. And then this is the array of representation format. So don't get scared by looking at this. This is just a array representation of the image which you are actually having a look at. Okay. So yeah. Now let's rescale them. Okay. So why rescaling is required? A simple example of why rescaling is required is because we are so see we are dividing this by 255. So why are we dividing this by 255? Anyone knows? Or why we are rescaling that images? Anyone who knows it? Why we are rescaling them? And why not keeping them as it is? Uh, Obviously. So we are doing that to make sure the probability is from 0 to 1 and to normalize these images into the format so that we consume co- less uh, less compute power. Okay, if we are computing three channels, that is going to take a lot of more compute power and a lot of more time, and the problem is solvable. So obviously we can use a single channel and then solve this. Now here what we are doing is we are using a sequential model, and we are using three layers. The first layer is flattened layer, the second layer is dense layer, and the third layer is dense layer. Okay, now if you just hover through it, you will know what does this layers do. So if you just hover through flattened layer, so it will tell you what does the flattened layer actually do. Okay, so you can see flatten the input, so it does not affect the batch size, and so it just takes an input and like adds an extra dimension there. So usually when you see it actually, so when I say it flattens the layer, what do I really mean is that, so it is going to multiply 28 by 28, and that's going to give you around 700 and something. Okay, let's calculate it. My math is not so good, so 28 into 28, 784. So it is going to give you 784 at the first layer. So what you are typically doing is you are flattening the input. Okay. So sorry, I earlier I said that the images are from 25 to 25. The images are actually from on 28 by 28. Okay, they are not 25 by 25. They are 28 by 28. Okay. So we are using first layer as a flattened layer so that we can put that input into the layer. Then we are using another layer called as a dense layer, and in that we are having 128 neurons. Okay. Now we are going to talk about that, how they are going to use, how and why we are using them in the later stage. And then we have an activation which is called as ReLU. So what is activation? Again, the question arises. So I will talk about activation also uh, when I talk about another example in the same lab. Okay, so don't worry about it. And then we have the output layer, again a dense layer with 10 outputs. Why 10 neurons in the output? Because we have 0 to 9 numbers, that is total of 10 numbers, and that's why 10 neurons in the output, so that it can give me a 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9. Okay. Activation, again we am using a softmax activation here. So I can use either ways. I can just write softmax like this, or I can use tf.nn.softmax. Both the ways works. Anything works. Okay. So now here I have defined the model architecture. Okay, so what I have just done is I have defined the model architecture here. So it will run and it will show me, display me the model architecture. So let's see what, and it will show me the input and the output of each architecture. So okay, let's compile the model. So here is the architecture which is below. So let's compile the model and then see the architecture. So let's compile this, and so we are using optimizer as Adam, loss as sparse categorical cross entropy, because we have multiple classes. If we had two classes, we will use binary cross entropy. So I will explain you these terms. Okay, what is optimizer, what is loss, and what is matrices. Matrices is a way of calculating how accurate your model is. So apart from that, I am pending explaining you why to take 128 neurons, why to take activation as ReLU or sigmoid or softmax, what is loss and what is optimizer. Okay, because once we run the program, you will get familiar with the output, and then I have already coded one more neural network just below it so that we can have a look at that. So let's compile the model. The model is compiled. Let's see the summary of the model. And the summary here, so the first input, the first is the flattened layer, and then there is the shape is of 784, and there is no parameters to learn because it is just flattening the input. And then there is a dense layer of 128 neurons. Why 128? You can take 256, no one is stopping you, or you can take one, you can take 10, it doesn't really matter, unless and until, so if you take a big number, so that is going to take a lot of time to train. If you're going to take a small number, your model might not converge or not might grasp the features which are really needed. So why 128? Because scientists found 128 to 56 or the multiples of 128 to be very effective than putting up a random number. Okay, so you will see most of them using 128 or 256 mostly. Okay, because that is what a recommended, or you can say standard way of using it is. Though you can use 200, that is not a problem. You can use that, but your model might not converge, or it might take more time if you take more neurons. Okay, and then you get a parameter of 1004,480. Now how is this generated? Okay, so there is a formula which generates this number of parameters. Okay, so I'm going to share that formula as well. I have written that below as well, so you can see that that is dependent on your loss functions, on your weights, on your biases, and the learning rate, the activation function which you're using, a lot of factors. Okay, and again, the output layer is a dense layer with 10 neurons, obviously, because we need an output from 0 to 9, and that's why 0 to, that's why 10 neurons. Okay. So the total learning parameters, so the total parameters are 101, 101K, and they all are trainable parameters. So that means they are going to they are going to be dynamic whenever you train the model. So they are going to learn some amount of details whenever you are running the epoch. Okay, and then we fit the model using model.fit, and then we pass the x and the y. X as an input image, y as in labor, okay, and the epochs is 5. So epochs means one epoch means running the cycle once, okay. So one epoch means running the cycle once, and then if I say 5 epochs, that means running the same cycle 5 times, okay. So here you can see we have a loss of 0.2 and the accuracy of 0.92, loss of 0.1, and then it keeps on increasing, and then we have achieved an accuracy of 0.98, that is 98% accuracy, and the loss is very minimal at 0.04. Okay, and let's see the output, the prediction, how well it predicts. So once I kind of see the prediction, so when I'm evaluating, so remember this, what I'm doing is I'm printing this accuracy of training time, okay. It is training time accuracy, okay. And after that I'm using testing time accuracy. What is the accuracy on testing data? And if I see the accuracy on testing data, it is pretty like 1% less, so it was 98 here and it is 97 here, okay. And the loss is also increased to 0.07 from 0.04. Why has this happened? Because obviously the system has never seen the training data, and this is a real world scenario kind of for the model. So it is it is not that effective as it is effective on the training set. And once we predict using predict function, then we are passing an individual image and we are getting a numpy array as an output or a tensor as an output, okay. Now if you I want to see, if I want to extract the image, what I can do is I can run this command, and that command is going to extract and print the image with showing me the predicted value, that is 7, okay. So this is quite accurate, it is working, yes. Now let's understand the major concepts which we discussed earlier, okay. So what is an activation function? So you might have seen that after every layer we are applying an activation function, and why we are applying the activation function? To bring non-linearity into the system so that our layers can converge, okay. um, so earlier we used to use different functions like tanh and sigmoid to bring non-linearity, okay. But researchers developed ReLU, and we use ReLU as of now because it is very effective. It consumes less amount of compute power, and it gives more accuracy than the traditional activation functions. So what does activation really do? So what we are trying to do is find the gradient of the problem, okay. So ReLU actually helps us to kind of pull back our vanishing gradient, okay, which is most of the issue, which is the issue when your gradients falls exponentially to zero, so below zero, okay. So what ReLU does is ReLU says that if either it is zero or either it is x, okay. So there is nothing which is going below zero, so either it is zero or either it is x, okay. At the same time, sigmoid was not like that. Sigmoid was allowing some negative values which was passing through. So sigmoid was like, okay, positive is okay, but we can also allow some negative values, okay. So that's why it was not so much effective. But still, we use sigmoid for some times, okay. So uh, the latest activation function is so I will show you the latest activation function. So this is ReLU, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the latest one. So this is how the ReLU looks like, and the latest one is called as leaky ReLU. So what does leaky ReLU does is it allows small amount of leakage to the current scenario. So earlier we didn't had any leakage. There was either zero or either one. So either x or one. Okay. Now we are allowing some small amount of allowance so that if the gradient falls below, it can still have a way to come up and have get activated in the near future. Okay. So that's why we have something called as leaky ReLU. Okay. So that is the advanced version of ReLU. Though still people prefer ReLU. Okay. So okay. So let's discuss about loss function. So first we talked about activation function. Now let's talk about loss function. So as I told you, like whenever you are displaying a number, they are classified into a binary image or or a binary or 0 or 1. Okay, so all the images are classified into 0 and 1 and then passed into the system. So here, if you see, all the things like the loss function, what it does is it actually tells us that the difference between what we actually want and what we are actually getting. Okay, and then it tries to minimize that error, that difference between what we actually want and what we are actually getting. Okay, so what are the types of loss functions? There is MSE, there is DICE, there's RMSLE. These are some of the functions which are available, which we are using. There is Atom Optimizer. Okay, there is an optimizer. Sorry, we are talking about loss functions now. Okay, so these are the loss functions which we can use in terms of using or whenever we are defining our neural network. So if you go back there and if you see the compilation, so here we are using the loss function as pass categorical entropy, cross entropy, because we have multiple classes. If we had two classes, we could use binary cross entropy. Okay, so for convolution neural networks or CNNs, you can use MSE, DIAS, or RMSLE. Okay, so there are different types of loss function. The majority of them, you know uh, the majority of them work on the same principle, that this is the error, this is the actual output. So how we can reduce this epoch by epoch and reach or converge our model. Okay, so now let's talk about optimization. Okay, or how do we optimize? So what is optimization related to? So for example, whenever let's say, let's go back to the presentation, and so let's say this is our neural network. Okay, and we have this neural network available here. So what I'm going to do is so let's see how does optimization works. Okay, so let's say I don't really know. Okay, what are the weights here? So I am going to randomly assign some weights. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 to this networks, and then once they come into the feed, okay, and the loss is calculated. Now if the loss is very much high, it is like 10, 12, or 15, then the optimizer comes into the place, and then it optimizes this weight so that we can have a proper output. Okay, so every time whenever epoch happens, so obviously there will be weights here as well, 1, 2, 3, 4. What is the work of optimizer optimizes this weight of a neural network so that we can have the convergence or the output. Okay, so yeah, that is the work of the optimizer. Why to use Atom Optimizer? Because it is well known and it is one of the best optimizers available. Okay, so there are some more details. Obviously there is one more thing which is called as the learning rate. Okay, so let me explain you how does the learning rate works. So okay, so how do I explain this in a very simple format? Okay, so how many of you are preparing for the exams, your semester exams, or you have prepared for your semester exams? Yeah, not preparing. We are enjoying, man. Why we will prepare? It's holiday, and we think exams are not going to happen. So we are like kind of we are kind of waiting so that the education minister comes and says that all exams are cancelled, and then we will be happy. Though the first, second year, and third year are already happy, we final year are not happy yet. So yeah, but in normal days, let's say, even if it's a normal day, what we usually do is we don't study from starting. So understand these two patterns. Okay, so let me share my screen and show you. Okay, so there are two types of students: toppers and then normal students. So there are toppers and then there are normal students. Okay, and then there are backbenchers. Okay, KT group. But we are not going to focus on them because obviously, um, no one focuses on backbenchers, so let's consider toppers and normal students. So toppers, they want to, they have उनके ज़िंदगी का एक ही मकसद है, obviously, top करना. So they want to top in exam, okay, score the highest marks possible, okay, maximum marks. So what they do is they have a slow learning rate. What does that mean? So each day, one lesson, something like this. Each day one lesson or each day revision or something like that. And then they kind of, because the learning rate is slow, so they are able to retain all the learnings. Okay. So the learning rate is slow, so they are able to retain all the learnings. Okay. Cool. Now normal students. What is their goal? Their goal is to pass. Okay. How to pass? Simple. Okay. Simple technique. Uh, what they do, they are learning rate is high. What does that mean? They don't study. Okay, so let me grab this and put this on the new sheet so that I'm making sense. Their learning rate is high. So how? Don't mistake me. Huh? They are not high. Their learning rate is high. Okay, everyone is normal. So okay, so their learning rate is high. How is their learning rate high? They use easy solutions. Prepare, you know, in a day, and they, kind of ratify everything in a day. Go tomorrow, give paper, come back, and they don't even remember the questions. So if you have seen these normal students, they come out of their exam and they throw the question paper. They don't even look at the question paper because they don't even remember the questions. Okay, and they don't remember what they wrote, what they wrote in the answers. But if you see the toppers, they see the question, they analyze it, they kind of give themselves marking and then declare themselves top before the, even before the exam, before the next paper even comes. Okay, so when the learning rate is low, you require, the time taken is lot, obviously, uh, one lesson each day, and you know how much how much portion we have in engineering, so the time taken to learn is more. And but the problem, the benefit is that they are able to retain the knowledge, so probably they are going to remember that forever, obviously. Okay, but normal students prepare in a day, use easy solutions, normal solutions, one day learning important questions and all that, and then pass. Now there comes legends or backbenchers. Okay, and they are like, they prepare 2 hours before exam, so their learning rate is very high. So they kind of use a pre-trained model, or they do transfer learning. Okay, so what is transfer learning? Transfer learning is a way of transferring. So let's say I am a model and I was trained on hundreds of GPUs and thousands of GPUs, and I was trained for 3 to 4 months. Now I know how to learn. Okay, I have learned how to learn. So what I can do is I can transfer that to you guys. So because I've been learning machine learning for 3 years, so I know how, what is machine learning. So I'm trying to convey that to you within 2 hours, and that is what transfer learning is. So for legends, they rely on their friends. Their friends come in the morning, 4 hours. They transfer all the learning which they did within last 2 days, and then these guys pass. So this is the concept of learning rate. Okay, I hope you are able to understand. Okay, so this is how transfer learning I also explained. So now let's write everything into one given segment. Okay, so one given block. So importing TensorFlow, importing my matplotlib plot, pyplot, because we have to plot. So I'm using Keras Minish dataset. 28 by 28 is the representation of the image. Loading them into train test. Okay, obviously. Then normalizing them. So earlier I used divide function. Now I'm using normalize function. Both works. Both are good. So here you can see a comment scales between 0 and 1. Okay, and I have also mentioned earlier we use divide by 255. It does the same work. Okay, then we are using a sequential model, and then here we are using a flattened layer in the first input, and then using a dense layer. Here we are using two dense layer. Okay, remember that 128, 128. So I will make it 256 so that my model is learning more. And then activation is ReLU, and here the activation is softmax. Okay, and so our output layer is 10 units for 10 classes. Why softmax? Because probability distribution, because last layer is, so for last layer we are using softmax because from this layer there are 256 inputs. Okay, from this 256 input we need only 10 outputs. We cannot display 256 inputs as an output because we have only 10 classes. So in that case what we are doing is we are using softmax function, which is going to help us to give the probability distribution of these classes. Okay, at the last layer. Then we are using Atom. Why? Because Atom is a good optimizer. Okay. Sparse categorical cross entropy, because we have multiple classes, not just two classes. And matrices accuracy, because we are measuring accuracy as of now. Then we are training the model using fit, and we are using 5 epochs, 1 to 5. Okay. So, and then we are calculating, displaying the loss and accuracy. So let's run this and let's see the output. So here we have, so see the accuracy hit around 98% already in the fourth epoch, and in the fifth epoch we have the accuracy as, I guess it will go to 99. No, it was 98. And again, in testing set it is less than that. Okay, it is 97. Now I'm going to save my model. I can save this model, so it will be available in minish.model file. So if I see in the files and I refresh this, so I have this minish.model, and in that I have saved model.pb. So this is the file which I can download, and then you can use this file. So when I talk about deployment, so let's say if I want to deploy this model on an Android device, I can share this file with my Android developer, and then he can deploy this file. Usually I don't share PDF PB file. I will need to convert that into light format, but we are not looking at that for now. But yeah, that's how you save the file using model.save function, and then you can load this file using load model function. Okay, load underscore model, and then you can predict on top of that. So it will, obviously I have not printed the predictions. I have just saved it in the variable. So now I will print it, and again it will show me the array like last time. So I need to extract that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to print this and save this as an output. So yeah, so I can change the value of n here. So I can change n to 2, and I can see what is the output. Output is 1. I can change n to 3. So what I have done is I have iterated, because we have 10,000 images in test, right? So you can iterate the number of images by 0, 1, 2, 3, or you can put it in for loop and display all the images together. But I don't recommend that. So I am iterating it one by one, and I am seeing the images at fifth position. N is 5 means the sixth position, obviously. So sixth position there is 1, and the 1 is displaying. So I'm going to see what is there at the 100th position. And let's see the output. And the output is 6, and the predicted value is also 6. So yeah, so let's say if I want to stop that when the accuracy reaches 90 percentage, so I can use something called as early stopping and different techniques. You can go and have a look at that later. I'm not going to explain this as of now. So yeah, okay, let me show you a visualization. This is something which could be exciting. So this is a visualization of the whole network which we just created. So for beginners or newbies, you can actually write the year, and it is going to display it pixel by pixel, and you can see the output. Output is 3. Okay, so I'm going to clear this. I'm going to write 1. and see, it detected that one as 2. Okay, it detected that one as 2, 0, 1, and 2, because I stretched it and it looks like 2. Don't you think it looks like 2? I'm bad at handwriting anyway. So I will write proper one. See, so now it is proper, and then it is predicting 1. Okay. I will clear it. I will write 9 and see the output. Yeah, it is working. 9. Okay. Everything is working. So let's clear this. And let's write 7 and see the output. Yeah, this is also working. So this is the same model which we trained. Okay. Deployed using a visualization tool. Okay. Let's go back. So are humans more smarter? Obviously, yes, because what you saw was created by humans. That's why we are smarter. Yes. So in the near future, what happens to our jobs? Are they going to be taken away? Most probably, most of the jobs will be taken away. Yes, but there will be more jobs in the near future. Why? Because computer science is going to generate a lot of new jobs. Okay, jobs which we have never imagined were existent before. But there will be many jobs which will be eradicated. So machine learning is often referred as automation of automation. So manufacturing units, industrial units, most of the jobs will be eradicated. If you have seen this episode of Tom and Jerry, where Tom lost his job to a cat, a robot cat, but soon Tom was replaced again because the cat was again the Jerry helped Tom to you know make that robot cat go mad. So Tom again came back to his position. So as soon as the humans progress, they learn and they try different things. There is no stopping, never. What does the future looks like for data scientists? So now data scientists are developing AutoML, and obviously, if they develop AutoML, there is no need of data scientists because anyone can come and do machine learning. So that is going to reduce. So a classic example of AutoML can be this. So I'm going to display one more example. Okay, here. So what I'm going to do is show you an example. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new project. Okay, and I'm going to pass some input images. So this is, let's say, Ali, and then I'm opening webcam, and then hello, you're able to see me, I guess. So I'm going to add my images there. Okay, 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 okay. So I add around 200 examples. I will add 200 examples. Okay, 200 examples. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make another class which is called as Ali. So I'm going to use brighter version of myself. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my mobile flash and I'm going to put it on my face and I'm going to press record. And I have 200 images here. 200 images here. So there are two classes. I have already have input images, class 1 and class 2. I can add multiple classes. I can change the model here, though I don't want to. Then I will train the model and the model will automatically train. Okay. So you can see here I don't need a data scientist actually. All the tasks can be done by a naive user who doesn't even know what is machine learning or how machine learning works. He just needs to upload his images. You can either use webcam or you can use upload function, and then it will train. And then what you have is a trained model for you. Okay, so it will take some time to train. Obviously, 200 images per classes, so it will take some time to train. But yeah, it will train and it will give us an output. So because we have so many images, it's showing us unresponsive. We will wait for this guy to complete it. We'll remove my webcam. Okay, I guess we have given a lot of images. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just refresh this and add only 100 images. So here I'm going to use the webcam again, but I'm going to add only 100 images. Yeah, only 100 images. And now the brighter version of me. So I'm not renaming class for you guys. Just know that brighter Ali and normal Ali. Only 100 images. 100 images. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm going to see the under the hood as well. So I want to see under the hood, and then I want to train the model. Okay. So it will be trained there. So the data is not even traveling to the server. It is staying inside the browser, not traveling to the server, and then only then and we can train a machine learning model right there. Okay, without leaving the browser. So it will take some time. We will come back to this later. Okay. Let's go back to the presentation. So this was a demonstration about how actually machine learning can do without even a data scientist, and how AutoML works. So yeah. So you can try this yourself. I will share the URL. I'll post this in the Telegram group itself. And let's see if it's training. So it is going to take some time, obviously, because we have a lot of data here. Okay, and it is going to take some time to train because my camera is already engaged with the teams. Okay, so the camera is also not proper working. So yeah, it is going to take some time. Okay, let's go back to our presentation. So that was it. And there are a lot of demos which I want to show you, but I will show you later the day. So what are the hottest roles currently in the market? Machine learning engineer is one of the hottest role, backend engineer, full stack engineer, data scientist, and there are a lot of jobs of sales as well, digital marketing as well. So don't be just running behind machine learning. There are other jobs which are amazing, which you can do, which includes data analytics, business intelligence, BI, and all of it, which includes data and working with data, but not actually kind of machine learning. And also, as I told you earlier, that by 2024 we will have a lot of jobs and we will have a very less number of graduates. Still today we employ a lot of electronics guys and mechanical guys in IT companies, and that is going to rise. And there are going to be a lot of computer jobs available. So with that, I end my session. Thank you so much for having me. Let's see if the demo is available. Okay, I guess it's stuck again. Because I have a lot of browsers running and all that, so that's why I guess this might be a problem. Okay. Yeah, we already have the output. Okay. So this is me. So see, class one, it is properly predicting class one. And let's do the brighter early part. So let's do the brighter early part. Hmm. Okay. Yeah, class two. Yes. Let's try to fool the machine by adding some amount of light. Okay, it does detect. So you can see how I was clearly able to kind of use this very easily, and I can keep the input off. I can export this model, or I can download this model directly into in GitHub or TensorFlow, and I can use saved model, and I can just copy this code and just paste it, and it will work. Okay. So this is how simple anyone can do machine learning very, very easily. Okay. So without even any knowledge of TensorFlow or machine learning. So this is part of AutoML. Okay. So thank you so much for attending the session. With this note, I will end it. So is there any questions? We can take the questions. Okay.
Yeah, you can just raise your hands, or you can just tell us in the chat box. It would be easier for us.
Hello.
Yeah, hello.
Hello. Am I audible?
Yeah, you're audible.
Okay. Ali, this is
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Suresh. This is Suresh Jaju.
Yes.
I have one doubt regarding this one, as you said that as far as the job is concerned, because
Yeah,
see by 2024 you say that there will be a lot of jobs. So
yeah,
this machine learning or all these things is that we are moving towards the 100% digitization. Correct?
yeah. Yes.
Yeah. So that means there will be loss of jobs only. If everything will
Yeah.
be done by the machine, then what will be the need? See, if the 100 people are working, then there will be the 10 people will be working there.
Yeah. Okay. So
So,
I'll answer
the,
your question. I guess there's a lot of background noise
and
coming from
the
somewhere.
second question also, one question. Just,
Yeah.
please,
Also, I'm not able to hear you at all. Um, a lot of background noise.
hello.
Yeah. Hello. Now, I'm not able to hear you. Can you please write it in the comment section? Because I'm not able to hear you at all. I can answer your first question. Oh, okay.
Go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
Okay. So when I talk about jobs in computer science, I'm not talking about just machine learning and artificial intelligence. So most of the focus is about, so let's say Netflix and TV. Okay. Now TV, everyone thought that Netflix will never be growing because there is TV already, right? And TV is already employing a lot of people. But if Netflix comes into the picture, TV will lose its importance and no one will watch TV. But that is not the case. There are a lot of people who still watch TV, and there are a lot of people who still watch Netflix. So what we mean to say is that even today there are not even 50% of the world is on internet. Okay, there is only 10 and 20% of the world in the internet. Okay, and we can if all the people come on internet, that is going to create more and more people to create applications and content, and there need to be people who are going to drive this digital change. Now, when I talk about losing jobs, obviously people who are there in manufacturing units are going to use jobs. So, for example, people working in Tesla factory. So half of the work is done by robots, right, in the automobile industry. People working in Alibaba Group, half of the work is done by the robots. But at the same time, they are generating a lot of jobs. For example, the people who are going to create that robots are going to be data scientists, are going to be from the robotics industry, and they are going to be mass production. The people who are going to do, who are maintaining that, or having a look at if they are working properly. Again, there arises a question about are you going to trust a robot with 100% accuracy for doing your operation, or are you going to trust a doctor with a 70% accuracy for doing your operation? So if you ask me, I will say I'm going to trust a doctor, because even though he has a 70% accuracy, he is a human being. I can reason him if something goes wrong, but I cannot reason a machine. So keeping that factor in mind, I think there is a 50-50 chance, but again, I am more inclined towards it is going to generate more and more jobs because of the digital transformation and not machine learning specifically. Okay. Okay. There was one more question in the chat. Is there a way to convert a Python model to TensorFlow.js? Yes, definitely. So you just saw the model which I saved. I can convert that model into TensorFlow.js very easily. Okay, so I can do that. There is a way. Yes, and TFJS provides that feasibility to convert your Python model into JavaScript. But I would not recommend that. I would prefer to write the model itself in TensorFlow.js. Okay, so I can write the complete model in TFJS. Why should I kind of write a model in Python and then convert that into TFJS when I can write the complete model in TFJS? Okay. From where and how you can learn AI and ML? That is a very generic question. I don't recommend random courses, and I don't want people to do that random courses and become ML experts, so-called ML experts. So I cannot answer this generically. So if you are interested, I need to see your background. I need to see what you currently do, and how I can design a path for you. So obviously that is like you can message me and I can tell you where you can learn from artificial intelligence or machine learning if you want a very specific path to yourself. But if you're looking for a generic view, then you can go to Coursera, and there are a lot of courses which are available, and you can do that courses and learn machine learning by default. So that is available that you can do. Uh, okay. Any more questions?
Yeah, any more questions? Anyone? You just put in the chat box.
Yeah, yeah. You can convert that Python model into TFJS. It is totally fine. Okay, you can do that. Or you can convert that TF Python model into TF Lite file, and then you can deploy that onto Firebase ML toolkit, and you can use that for doing REST API calls. That is way too easy than even converting into TensorFlow.js. The name of the tool, I will share that tool in the Telegram group. You can see it there. Okay, I'll share it in the Telegram. No worries. Any more questions? No, it's Inception. It's Inception and it's MobileNet. So Alex, it's not AlexNet. AlexNet has been like discarded by Google. It has been so long. So people, Google usually don't use AlexNet. They usually use MobileNets, or they use ResNets, or they use Inception. So Inception V3, one of the best models, which people use. Inception V3. If you are deploying on mobile, then MobileNet or SSD models, they are very popular. Okay, SSD or mobile launch model. So yeah, these are the models which are available. ResNet is my favorite. Okay, ResNet is my favorite. So yeah, thank you, ma'am, for attending. Thank you, everyone. Okay, anyone else?
Anyone else has got some questions? They can ask. Yeah, you can ask the questions, or we will end the session.
Yeah. So please fill the feedback form so that you can get your certificates. That is very much necessary.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Anyone else? I guess
Yeah,
everything is
anyone?
fine. As I told you already, my channel is there, so you can go to that Telegram channel and see all the details. So I'll post the link again so that if you want, you can join.
So there's
But
a question.
yeah, yeah, coming back.
How is it? Someone asked it. How is DigitalOcean as a platform deploy models?
I don't find it good. I really don't like it. If you talk about deploying models, I usually prefer Google Cloud Platform or Firebase or Heroku. Heroku is good as well. Or because DigitalOcean is the underlying infrastructure of DigitalOcean is AWS. Okay, so it doesn't really make sense to use DigitalOcean if the underlying infrastructure is on AWS. So why not use AWS directly? Okay, so you can use GCP. I prefer GCP a lot because I have been working with it and for last 1 year, and I really like the latency, the training, and then the ML pipelines. I really like that. So I prefer GCP, but I also like AWS, and there is Heroku. I really like Heroku. Heroku is also the same thing. The underlying infrastructure is like GCP or AWS, so they just give you the ease of access. So it doesn't really matter. Like, yeah, you can use the base players instead.
Yes, ma'am.
Any more questions? Okay, so I guess all the questions are over. So I usually end my session by saying thank you, and here also I'm saying thank you.
Hello.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Ah, ah. When do we use TensorFlow and when do we use Keras?
A very good question. There's a lot of background voice. Can others please mute their mics? Okay. When do we use TensorFlow and when do we use Keras? A very good question. Okay. So people also ask me about PyTorch, so I will clear all three doubts. Now see, Keras is amazing. Okay, the way Keras was written, I really love Keras. Okay, but what has happened is that the founder of Keras is working on TensorFlow. Okay, so now you have something called as tf.keras, TensorFlow.keras. So there's a very low level wrapper which has been created into TensorFlow itself. So now Keras and TensorFlow, they both are not different things. They are one and the only thing, because they have been because the creator of Keras has merged Keras into TensorFlow into its core. Earlier, when TensorFlow was into its initial days, Keras was just offered as a high level API. But now you can use low level APIs in Keras in TensorFlow for Keras. Okay, if you're using pure Keras, I really like it, and I also prefer using Keras. But again, when you are working with a framework, it gives you more benefits. So, for example, conversion into light version is something which Keras doesn't offer. This is something where I have to use TensorFlow. So, yeah. So
Hello.
I usually prefer using.
But the
Yeah.
literature.
Yes,
Hello.
sir. Yeah.
Hello. But the
Yes.
literature says that we have to use in Keras as well as TensorFlow independently.
Not really. So you can
Fusion.
use no. So with TensorFlow 2.0, so when it was TensorFlow 1.x version, okay. So in that case, the Keras was only the high level API access. So Keras was not integrated at its core. So Keras was only as a wrapper.
Okay.
Okay. So it was on top. TensorFlow
Okay.
was just having the wrapper of Keras. But now with TensorFlow
How many
2.0,
such? Hello.
yeah.
How many such wrappers are allowed there on top of TensorFlow?
You can actually make anything. So with TensorFlow 2.0, so one problem with TensorFlow 1.x was that researchers were not preferring it, because you are not able to write machine level code, or you are not able to write wrappers around TensorFlow because it was not that easy. Uh, and that's why people prefer PyTorch, because PyTorch is way too easy in that sense, and you can write wrappers around it like it's your language. Okay, and that's why researchers prefer PyTorch. So if you're into research, I will still recommend you PyTorch, because PyTorch is the best. But if you're talking about TensorFlow, if you still want to use TensorFlow 2.0, TensorFlow 2.0 has some optimizations, and I really like it, but I haven't tried it myself, so I cannot comment on that. But yeah, people say that it is highly customizable,
Okay.
TensorFlow 2.0, but I still prefer PyTorch in that sense,
That
because yeah, PyTorch is the best in terms of research.
that's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's all from my side. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
All right. So, any more doubts? The feedback link is given to you in the chat box. So, just have a look in the chat box. Start filling the feedback link. Any more doubts? Yeah. Any more doubts? Yeah. Any more doubts? Queries? Anything? Oh, you want to ask Ali, sir? All right. We have got one. Sir, there is one doubt.
Yeah.
Which is your best ML project till date? Someone has asked.
So my best project is about so we did two projects. So one is an international project which is in a collaboration with University of Malaysia and my university AP Science Institute, my college. So AP Science Institute of Technology. But that is the paper is not yet published, so I cannot reveal much details. But it is more on it is more like a surveillance project, but most basically on pedestrian basis. So I'll share the details once the paper is out. The other project which is up and running is about the one which I shared in the starting of the Intel one. So that was where I was detecting like if there could be a possible stampage available or if the stampage will happen or not. Okay. So that is like predicting it way before it is going to happen based on the movement of people around on the railway station. So basically, we are thinking to deploy that on Andheri, Dadar, and Bandra major stations where there are a lot of movement of people. So yeah, that is where that is one of my like most favorite project you can say. Also, there is one more project which I have made, but it is on YouTube, so I can share the link. You can have a look. This is also one of my very good. I really like this project because it relates to youngsters more. So I can share with you. Maybe you can have a look and see it.
Absolutely, sir. Absolutely. So I guess there is one more question, a general question. What defines the entrepreneurship with less knowledge to showcase ideas? Like, for example, he has some ideas, but he doesn't have a way to showcase them or implement them.
Okay, so in that case, what you need to do is you need to improve your presentation skills. Okay, you need to improve. So you might have seen my presentation, right? My presentation is not a normal presentation. I have invested a lot of time to make that presentation. Okay, and the first impression of the speaker is from the presentation of the idea is from the presentation or from the look and feel of how good it looks, how good it is, or how easy it is. So why people use TikTok? Because it is so easy to use. Okay, because you just download the app and it works, right? Okay, it's very easy, it's very passive. Okay, so if you want to be an entrepreneur, the first thing, it is not about reinventing the wheel. Okay, so if the wheel is invented, just add features to that wheel. So let's say Uber was already there. So why did Ola come in the picture? Okay, because the market is big. Ola and Uber both can survive. With that, Pili Kali Pili taxi can survive, auto rickshaw walas can survive. Okay, and if there is one more competitor, they can survive as well. Okay, so in Malaysia there was Ola and Uber, but then too they had their own service or taxi service which surpassed Ola and Uber both, because they provided better service than Ola and Uber. So in every business model, in every career which you have, you need to kind of you don't need to reinvent the wheel. You need to see what is a fall in the wheel, and then you need to fix that fall, and you need to present it in such a way. So Oyo, obviously, Oyo is a real life example of how you transform dead hotels into profit making machines. So yeah, presentation, pitch, what you're pitching for, what you're asking for, uh, and yeah, that is something which is there.
Thanks a lot, sir. I guess Rishabh, your doubt is pretty much clear. Yeah, he's texted that. Thank you very much.
Thank
Anyone
you.
else has got some doubts?
A periodic table. How periodic table looks like. So when people Snapchat use emojis a lot, okay, there are a lot of emojis to be.
Yeah, so the project I was talking about, it is displayed here. So you can go to this channel and have a look at this video. This is the project which I was talking about teenagers. Okay. Do have a look. Okay, so if there are no questions, I will take a leave. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Hello.
yeah, yeah.
Hello.
Yes, yes.
Yes, sir. Sir, I'm Vaibhav Said. Sir, I just want to give a vote of thanks and then we'll end the session. Is it okay, sir?
Sure. Go ahead.
Yes. Okay. Okay, so how was the seminar, everyone? I'm sure you enjoyed it. So it's a great honor and privilege to propose the vote of thanks. Let me first of all start by giving glory of Almighty God for making this machine learning webinar a great success. First and foremost, I thank the management team of Datta Meghe College of Engineering. I would like to thank Principal of Datta Meghe College of Engineering, Dr. Sudhir Savarkar sir, and Head of the Department of Electronics, Dr. DJ Pete sir, for his words of encouragement. I thank them for their kindness, interest, and continuous support. I thank on behalf of IIT DMC our special guest speaker, Mr. Ali Mustafa Sheikh, who despite his busy schedule has found time to grace this occasion and share the beauty of knowledge. We are so blessed to get the knowledge with the supremely talented, prestigious, honest, and inspirational Mr. Ali Mustafa Sheikh. If you can, a big round of applause for him. Also, I would like to thank faculty in charge of IIT DMC, Mrs. Preeti Jain ma'am. Last but not the least, I would like to thank my friends and all the participants across the world, across the India, for the cooperation in the making this webinar a resounding success. So on behalf of IIT DMC and Electronics Technocrat, I would like to thank you all. So thank you so much everyone for joining this webinar. And also,
Just a minute.
and also do subscribe to our channel, Electronics Technocrat. I will share this webinar link over there. So yeah, thank you so much.
Just a minute. Vaibhav,
Yes, sir.
you thank guest, you thank the other people also. So on behalf of audience, I'm thankful to Team IIT for arranging such a nice, informative session. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Ali sir. Thank you so much. Thank you, Jaju sir. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thanks a lot. Yeah.
Thanks a lot. Yes. So stay safe. Bye. Good night. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Stay safe, stay home, and stay safe. All right. Thank you. Let's end the session.
Yes.